Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast, a show where we dive deep into strategies behind starting and building consistently profitable businesses. Whether you're a founder, a leader, or just a curious dreamer starting to think, podcast is a toolkit for making profitability a default setting rather than a lucky outcome. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Today, my guest is Bob Fasick. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. Super excited to be with you today, Matt.
Yeah, this will be fun. So here's what I want to do. Like, we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
But for the people listening, why don't you introduce yourself as a person before we jump into the business?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So grew up in the Chicago area, huge Cubs, Bulls, Bears fan, Blackhawks fan, moved down to Indianapolis in 1992 with a little outfit called Charles Schwab and Company. Moved my wife down here. We pulled in 92, Matt, on 116th Street, and there was McDonald's, a Shell station, and a Marsh. And she goes,
I believe it was an Amoco, not a Shell.
It might have been Amoco. She's like, where have you taken me? So we've been here since 92. She's kind of still in denial. She's like, I'm from Chicago, but I live in Indiana. So that got us down here. Great career at Charles Schwab and Company before I took my entrepreneurial leap, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit here shortly.
So you've been here since 92.
Yes, sir.
And how long were you with Schwab after you got here?
Well, moved here in 92, had a pretty darn good career, Matt. I was fortunate enough to help with the transition from America's largest discount brokerage firm to the advice provider they are today. So I was on the road, goodness, for 4 or 5 years, just coaching and training and mentoring advisors on how to give advice the Schwab way and how to become really, really good sales folks and business developers. So my career started in 92. I left in around 2003 to take my entrepreneurial leap. But boy, did I learn a lot at Schwab, and it was just a phenomenal experience.
So 2003, you leave Schwab. What
Yes,
do you
sir.
do next?
Yep, great question. So a buddy of mine who had worked at Schwab, went to my church as well, came up to me. We were going through rounds of layoffs at Schwab at the time because the tech bubble. And he said, would you like to start a property management company? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I can run a pretty large corporate department, but I've never thought about running my own business. I'm in. So we jumped in with both feet. Our wives asked us, Matt, how we're going to get paid. And we said, we're not sure. And all of a sudden, we were running our own property management company. We had one property in Urbana, Illinois at the time. And we ended up growing that to about 25 or 26 within 2 years. So we had hockey stick growth and everything, Matt, that small businesses deal with, right? How do you find the right people? How do we finance this thing? How do we communicate efficiently? Issues everywhere. How do we get these things solved? But it was a good run there for a couple of years.
So 2003 to when?
Well, we got hit with another bubble. We had 2007, 2008, 2009 time frame, right? We were doing great, but we were in the commercial space, commercial real estate space. Our properties, we were managing manufactured housing properties. And even folks that lived in mobile home parks were having problems, making rent. So we weren't hitting our occupancy covenants. The banks did what they would normally do. They didn't know any different. And they said, we have to make some changes. So we ended up selling the portfolio, got our investors out pretty darn close to whole, which was a blessing. In about 2010, we were licking our wounds going, what just happened? And that was kind of the end of that first business.
All right. So 2010, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
You're whole, or as close to whole as you're going to be.
Yep.
What'd you do next?
We were licking our wounds a little bit, Matt. I'm trying to learn as much as possible, right? Because again, the life of an entrepreneur, as you know, is not straight line growth, right? There's periods of evolution, revolution. You hit these ceilings and you got to kind of start over again. So I was fortunate enough. I had a pretty darn good network. And a good friend of mine, a guy named Mike Lance, happened to be the chief learning officer over at Defender Direct, a small ADT dealer, or some of the folks here locally might know Dave Lindsay and the team. And he said, Bob, we need some leadership. We need somebody to come run a division. And I said, Mike, I don't know the first thing about security. He goes, no, but you know how to lead people. So I came in to help lead a division. We had six regions that reported into this division, and it was an interesting go. Really strong culture here locally, but as you spread out to some of the branches, the culture did not quite translate. So Mike, and he still doesn't remember this, Matt, handed me the book Traction by a gentleman named Gino Wickman. And I read it and I said, boy, oh boy, these tools and disciplines are awesome. I wish I had this when I was running my property management company. Things might have been a little different. And we started to use the tools and disciplines at Defender, and we saw some enormous change in culture. Everyone was on the same page with where they were going and how we were going to get there. We saw metrics start to pick up a little bit, and it was just an eye opener for me. So it had a great run at Defenders, learned a ton in the 3.5 years I was there.
So 3.5 years. So what year is it when you left Defenders?
End of 15 is when
End of
I ended
15.
up leaving Defenders.
So that's when you discovered EOS. And you implement. So what'd
Yeah.
you do at the end of 15? What'd you do next?
Yeah. Great question. Throughout that shingle again, another entrepreneurial leap, right? I'm going to be an outsourced sales consultant, whatever the heck that means. So I worked with some companies to help build infrastructure, build sales processes, things like that. And again, I was doing okay, but I wasn't quite sure where my direction was. It's like, is this really what I should be doing? And again, the EOS bug hit again. I got reintroduced to Mike. Mike had left Defenders at the time, and he had started a company called ML Talent Strategies. So we did some work together with some clients where we did bits and pieces of EOS. So Mike and I worked together for a minute, then the good old pandemic hit in 2020. I kind of circled the wagons again, did some consulting work with a company that sold PPE of all things. And we
Great
did
place to
great.
be.
It was a wonderful place to be. We had a really good sales force. We had probably 50 folks across the country, working with us. And I was consulting into this at the time. And one of the fortunate few that was able to really survive as an entrepreneur on my own during the pandemic. And it was coming out of that pandemic, Matt, that I was introduced by another one of my really, really good friends, Andrew Williams, to start looking into becoming an EOS implementer. So I started to do my research. 21, 22, I was vetting the opportunity, and I jumped in with both feet in late 22. Went through my boot camp with EOS in 23, and I've been doing it ever since, and just loving the way we're able to make an impact on entrepreneurs here in Central Indiana.
So let's break this into a couple different questions.
Please.
Let's start with, if you go back to 2010 when you started the property business,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you had to learn that you didn't know you would have to learn
Yeah,
based on your experience with Schwab?
yeah, that would have been in 03-ish.
Oh,
So
three-ish.
goodness
Yeah.
gracious,
Okay.
how to just do everything, how to just try to master everything from, you know, bringing in the right people, managing money, managing assets, because we're bringing in, manufactured housing to different locations and different properties, and just everything that hits a small business. Oh my gosh, taxes! We have to deal with taxes. What does that look like? Permits, the government. What do we have to do with all that? So a lot different than being in my corporate cocoon, if you would. Right, my ecosystem at the time was Charles Schwab and Company. That's all I knew. But now I had to broaden my horizons and get to know people in the industry, folks that can help us buy properties, folks that can help us buy the assets, the manufactured homes. And oh, yeah, we have to bring people in to manage all this and make sure we're bringing the right people in. So just so much went into it. It just, I learned a ton. I have an MBA from Loyola of Chicago, but until you get in the trenches and try to run something on your own, this is real world grad school stuff.
Well, there is a huge difference between looks good on paper and here's the way it actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably
Oh,
the
yeah.
most realistic part of Rodney Dangerfield and Back to School
Oh, yeah.
was when he explained, no, that's not how it works in class.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And again, oh my gosh, we have to pay out investors. Goodness gracious, we got to pay our families. A whole lot going on there. We got to kind of find these benefits that we took for granted in a corporate setting. So just a lot went into it, but boy, oh boy, did I learn a lot. And just
Now,
an
when you went
incredible.
back to Defenders,
Mhm.
And that was your first exposure to traction.
Mhm.
Talk about some of the things, yeah, because Defenders was rapidly growing, healthy. I mean, Marcia, obviously, everybody, a lot of people that we know in common
Yeah.
were part of Defenders, part of that rapid growth.
Oh, absolutely.
What was it that made Traction, the book, and EOS, the system, relevant there?
Yeah. Well, Dave Lindsay, we started that business, in a spare bedroom with his wife, Jessica. And it was all about how do you scale something quickly, bring consistency, right? How do you systematize something? The old franchise model, take on running a business. And Dave and Marcia just ran the playbook to a T. Dave, when there was something going on in the business that needed his attention, focus equals growth. He would jump in with both feet and make sure he was taking care of it. Marcia, just an amazing, amazing culture leader, right? The troops just followed her to all ends of the earth. And it was just amazing to see how well a culture could be built, especially here locally. Now, when you get outside of the headquarters, that culture wasn't quite as strong. So part of our job as leaders, and something that we learned, in traction, is we all need to be rowing in the same direction, right? Being on the same page. So getting out to the field, getting out and making sure that the folks in all the different branches, 125 at the time, knew what the plan was, knew what the vision was. And that was the big thing that I learned. If you get everybody marching in the same direction, rowing in the same direction, absolute magic happens. And Dave and Marcia were just so critical at bringing that to fruition. If you take a look at Central Indiana now, you talk about coaching trees, right? The Belichick coaching tree, not that I'm a Patriots guy. But Marcia and Dave, their tentacles are everywhere. I mean, there's leaders all across Central Indiana doing great things because of the work, that took place at Defender Direct back in the day.
But so your exposure to Traction began there,
Mhm.
right? So what did you guys use from Traction? How did you actually implement that? Because
Yeah,
that's the thread that ties your
absolutely.
past to your future.
Yep, yep, it sure does. And again, it's really the traction component of that, where you get into your rocks, right? What are the most important things that absolutely have to get done? And again, delivering on those rocks, those top priorities on a weekly basis with disciplined focus and accountability. We also learned at Defenders what gets measured gets done, right? So the whole data component, the scorecarding, and making sure that everybody had 1, 2, or 3 measurables that they were accountable for. I mean, Defenders was, in my wide array of work experiences, the most accountability focused environment I've ever been a part of. Because again, it was so important that we hit our measurables. It was so important on a weekly basis. We were on the same page and executing on the absolute top priorities, the ROTS for the organization to get us to where we need to be. So I'd say that those, the rocks and the meeting pulse and scorecarding and measurables were probably the biggest thing outside making sure we're on the same page with a vision, that I learned when we were at Defender Direct.
All right. So then you leave Direct Defender,
Mhm.
um, and you kind of wander,
Mhm. For a
right?
touch in the wilderness.
You're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And then 2021, 2022,
Mhm.
you start looking and say, well, maybe I could be an EOS guy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was,
So tell me about that.
I sure will. I sure will. So as I mentioned, I was working with Mike Lance, with ML Talent Strategies, doing some talent DNA work and having a blast and learning a lot and using bits and pieces of EOS there as well. And we joined an organization called Accelerant. And Matt, I know you're familiar with Accelerant. You
Yep.
know, top tier referral network, just a phenomenal, phenomenal organization with a bunch of great partners. And I was introduced to a gentleman named Andrew Williams, who was an M&A guy. And he took a look at my experience, what I had done at Schwab, my coaching, my training and my mentoring, my ability to build relationships. And he was an EOS implementer at the time. He said, Bob, you need to look into this because I think you'd be really, really good. And at the time, there were only a few implementers here locally, Matt. There was Andrew, there was Mike Hudson, and there was Jen Ramo. And Jen and I worked together at Defenders. And I asked them all, I said, is there room for another guy? And they just welcomed me with open arms because of the abundance mentality, right? So many small businesses, so many entrepreneurial businesses are lost because they don't have, structure in an operating system. And they said, Bob, come join us. So again, being welcomed into that community was a big deal. And I did my vetting, and EOS Worldwide did their vetting, and we decided it was a good fit, and not a regret since. And since that time, we've grown the market here in India. I think there's 7 or 8 of us here locally now, EOS implementers. And again, we just complement each other. We don't compete. We're complementary and helping each other help as many small businesses and entrepreneurs as we possibly can. And Matt, as you know, there's just so many opportunities out there. We can't handle them all, right?
Well,
So
I
we
think
work locally.
the research I did is that there's 24,000 EINs in the 317 area code with between $2 and $50 million of revenue.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, I have 15 or so clients right now. Don't want to take on more than 18. And again, a lot of our folks are at around 20 right now. So
yeah,
we're kind of getting full, and that doesn't even touch.
Doesn't even begin.
Doesn't even begin.
So when you started the EOS business,
Mhm.
like there's a continuum, right? One is, hey, I'm passionate about this. I'll let the money figure itself out. The other is, this is all about money. And if I like it, that's a bonus. Where would you be on that continuum?
Well, I was so passionate about helping people. That's kind of, I've been gifted with the ability to build relationships pretty quickly. And I just like helping people. So with my network, and again, remember when I was at Schwab, that was my small little ecosystem, the Schwab folks, right? When I left Defenders and I was working with Mike at ML, we had to start building a network. Getting involved with Accelerant helped that tremendously. And I just saw my network start to grow. Did a ton of networking, got to meet a lot of people. So when I pulled the trigger to become an EOS implementer, it wasn't super tough for me to have conversations with potential companies that needed help, have conversations with connectors, much like yourself, that knew of folks that needed help. And again, I was at a place where financially I could take some risks and go out and give this thing a go. And I built my 1-year plan. I wasn't going to get super aggressive. If I had 5 clients by the end of that first year, I was going to be happy. And I ended up having 7 after my first year, which was great. And I've gotten to the point now where if I can add one really, really good EOS client every quarter, I'm going to be in a really good place because I got a great bunch of clients now, Matt. Clients are a little bit like snowflakes. They're all different, right?
Yep.
All different industries. So I get to learn so many cool different businesses while bringing these tools and disciplines that are universal to help pretty much any company in any vertical. So I'd say I was at the end of, I just want to help people. The money will take care of itself. And I've just been blessed that that's been the case for me.
So now, it's 2002, 2003. You set up your EOS business. You've had success. I mean, you had success at Schwab. You actually kind of had success with the property management. You had success with ML. You had success at Defenders. You start your EOS business. What was something that you had to learn that you didn't realize you were going to have to learn?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'm still struggling with it, Matt. So who's ever watching this and knows the term delegate and elevate, they can understand this. I have trouble letting go a little bit. I like to take care of everything myself, including doing my admin work, including keeping my calendar and my schedule. I hate managing travel. So again, I need to let go of some things. Luckily, I have a daughter who has an event planning background and loves to schedule travel. So she's kind of my quote unquote executive assistant to a degree. But I think just letting go of some of the things I need to let go of, I still struggle with. But there's some things I like to do too. And it gives me great joy in doing some of the menial things. I bring lunch into my session rooms for my clients here at Launch Fishers. I love ordering the lunch. That's probably something an executive assistant could do, but I just really get excited taking care of people and being hospitable that way. So I think that was the biggest learning, and I'm still going through it, Matt. Next time you see me, you can ask me about it, but just kind of letting go of some of the things that I could have somebody else work on for me.
And and I'm sure you have these conversations. I have these conversations where somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm a cog in the wheel at this big company, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
about starting my own thing." How do you handle that conversation?
yeah. Well, I'm all about dreams, right? I'm all about curiosity. And for somebody to come and say, you know, something, I'm really thinking about starting something new. I'll tell them the realities that it's not straight line growth, right? As we've talked about, there's going to be periods of ups and downs, but I'm never going to shoot down anybody's dreams. More so, I'm going to say, go for it. Take some risks, take some chances. You're going to learn along the way. Stay confident, stay optimistic, stay positive and enthusiastic, and you can achieve anything. Um, but again, people have to look inside themselves and say, am I in a place financially where I can take those risks? How is my family going to feel about this? My wife was very understanding, man. When I started the property management company, said, I have no idea how we're getting paid. Somehow, somehow we got paid. Somehow we're still together after 36 years, right?
Yeah.
So again, that would be the advice. You got to look at everything. Be curious, ask questions, uncover something great about yourself that maybe you don't even know, and go do it.
All right. So now, if you were to go back and 2026 Bob got to go back and sit next to 2003 Bob
Mm, mm,
and say, "Hey, listen, you're starting your business tomorrow,
mhm,
right? There's a million things you can do when you go in,
mhm,
but here's the first thing you need to do."
mm,
What would you tell? Oh, and by the way, everything works out, Bob, so don't worry
mm.
about it. I'm future
Okay, good.
Bob. Future Bob's telling 2003 Bob everything works out.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you go in tomorrow, here's the first thing that you should concentrate on. What would that first thing be?
Goodness. Be ready for anything and everything. Obviously, we were in a pretty good place financially when I started the business, but boy, oh boy, that first year, it took us a couple of years to get that thing up and running. And it was a little lean at times. So again, I think I'd tell the old Bob, make sure you don't do anything stupid financially. Oh, like build a big old stupid house or something, right? Which we did. Um, right? And just be ready for anything. Running a small business is not easy. There's ups and downs, and there's no overnight success. People saw Dave Lindsay and Marcia at Defenders, and they said, "Oh, overnight success." Well, guess what? It took years and years and years for that
Yeah.
overnight success to happen, right? And just because you say, "Yeah, I run my own business," well, that's great and everything, but get ready because leaders eat last. I don't know if you've read that book,
Oh, yeah.
Leaders Eat Last, which is just amazing. You got to take care of your people first. And if there's
Yep.
something left over, guess what? You guys get to take a little something, something. So I think that was one of my big learnings. I had to pivot away from corporate America, and knowing that I was going to be getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and all those benefits are great. Oh, I get PTO and all that fun stuff. You go, it's not that way anymore. And just plan for uncertainty a little bit. So
Yes. Yes. Any other advice you'd give a brand new business owner?
rock and roll. Surround yourself with really, really smart people. Don't be afraid to be curious. Ask a lot of questions. So many people want to help new entrepreneurs, new business owners. We're just here to help folks be successful. It's not like you can't tell us your dreams and think we're going to steal them, because that's not going to happen. Folks want to help people, especially here in Central Indiana, be the best we can possibly be. So again, bring the mentality of curiosity and just know that people have been in that seat before and know what you're going through, and you're not the only one going through it. There's folks to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is probably the biggest thing, and it's funny, the inverse relationship between willingness to help and
Mm,
success,
yeah,
because I find the people who are most successful are the most willing to help,
yeah, yeah,
and the people who are struggling are the most, like, guarded with all their advice and information.
yeah. Isn't that crazy?
So, it's nuts.
Yeah,
Alright, well, that's a quick 25 minutes.
yeah.
So,
That was
why don't we
awesome,
do
man.
this?
I love
Why
it.
don't we do this? Let's wrap up here. I think seeking help is a great point to end on. So, first of all, Bob, thanks for being a great guest.
Well, thank you, Matt, for having me.
No problem. And for our listeners, if you want to know more about Bob or how to get in touch with them, you can go to the show notes. We'll have a bunch of information. By the way, if you like what you're listening to, 3 ways you can help. Leave a review, hit subscribe, share an episode. We'll be back next week. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.